Hey guys, I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to another edition of Reception Perception, the Mailbag. We've got a big show for you here today. We're talking rookie wide receivers, your questions on Jameson Williams, upcoming wide receiver free agents next offseason, and so much more. Let's get into it. Reception Perception, the Mailbag is brought to you by ZBiotics. Make their pre-alcohol probiotic your first drink of the night for a better tomorrow. It's engineered by a team of PhD microbiologists. Pre-alcohol is a probiotic drink that breaks down the byproduct of alcohol, which is responsible for those rough days after drinking. More info on our partnership with them coming up later in the show. But for now, I'm going to drink one of their pre-alcohols here. This is going to help me have a better day tomorrow while I enjoy a little glass of Petit Verdot from Chestnut Oak, a vineyard in Charlottesville here. Petit Verdot grows great in Virginia. So I'm going to enjoy this while I take some of your questions. Let's get into it. Okay, this first one comes in from Enzo from the Reception Perception Discord. This is where all of our questions come from. The link to join is below in the description. Who are some young wide receivers you see taking the leap in 2026, i.e. whose RP charting far outweighs their current usage? Great time to answer this question because I just wrote up Reception Perception's rookie report, the in-season rookie report on the site, and I've got a couple of candidates. Well, one candidate from that report that we can talk about here. Let's talk about Travis Hunter, man. I know it's been so disappointing this year. It was a gut punch to see him go down with that knee injury, out for the season, coming out of that bye when it was so clear. Did a video on this for the channel, so clear he was gonna get that wide receiver one bump after the bye. I was really excited to see it. Everybody was really excited to see it. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that. We're not going to get anything from him in the second half of the season. But as we're showing here, the route charting is still really good from him. He was trending up so well in those last few games, particularly on these horizontal breaking routes, slants, quick outs, posts, digs, really strong success rates on those routes. He was really working well. Look at the post and the dig route success rate, the slant route success rate. He was really showing an ability to win against man coverage, to work zones over the middle of the field on those crossing patterns as that F wide receiver in Liam Cohen's offense. I remain really high on Travis Hunter. It's going to be tough to talk about him in the offseason because we're not going to get some answers in the second half of his rookie season as to what his usage is going to be, but certainly a guy whose charting is outweighing his current usage. And I think just more time in an NFL program, running NFL routes is going to be good news for Travis Hunter. So he's one candidate. I'll also throw out two more, and these were guys that were drafted in last year's rookie class. Number one, Ricky Pearsall. Disappointing to see him return to the NFL field and get one catch for 0 yards. Obviously, that stinks. But Pearsall, to me, watching that game back, he's running a lot of clear out routes, clearing space for players underneath, which makes sense in his first game back off of a knee injury, multi-week injury. It was a difficult one to work through. But Kyle Shanahan said after the game, yeah, he was full go in terms of participation, but not full go in terms of the game plan. I think we will see him be a full go player in the second half of this season. I think he's going to get ramped up really well right away starting in this game against Carolina, man. I think Ricky Pearsall just looks like a stud when I watch him run routes, when I see him get that separation. We saw it in the first 3 games of the season. Remember, he was number 3 in the NFL in receiving yards when he was healthy this year. I think he can get back something closer to that form, even as he's competing with targets with some of those good players there in San Francisco. And the last guy I'll say, Marvin Harrison Jr. I know I'm like saying it fast because it's tough to talk about, but I still think Harrison in isolation is better than the stats he's shown up. Has he been perfect? No. Does he have issues at the catch point? 100%. Could he fight through contact a little better? Yeah, absolutely. But I think that we've seen with Jacoby Brissett has been under center, that middle of the field, the horizontal routes have been more activated with him there. And I think we'll see that in the future, whether it's Drew Petzing's offense or a new head coach, new play caller. I think we'll see good things from Harrison. I'm rather convinced we get a big season from him at some point down the line in his NFL career. So I'm still pretty bullish on Harrison, even if there have definitely been some disappointing moments here to start his NFL career. Second question we'll get to here comes from Shark. What did you notice across the board in terms of Lions wide receiver usage with Dan Campbell calling plays? The number one thing to talk about here is Jameson Williams, man. Dan Campbell said when he took the play calling duties from John Morton, He says, I think I have a really good feel for our players. And to me, the guy he's talking about, it's not so difficult to parse the words. It's Jameson Williams, because I think John Morton did not have a good feel for Jameson Williams. The speed on Jameson is intoxicating. You know, people want to use that speed for the downfield stuff. They want to get him rolling on the goes. They want to get him rolling on those more vertical patterns. But to me, I think JMO's speed is best expressed crossing the middle of the field, breaking towards the inside. And Ben Johnson figured that out towards his time, at kind of the end there of his time as the Lions offensive coordinator. And I think Dan Campbell knows that. I think John Morton didn't have a good feel for that. You immediately saw these two games when Dan Campbell's been calling plays, more of those crossing routes for Jameson Williams, off play action, the in breakers, yards after catch opportunities. I'm excited to see Jameson Williams. He could be one of those guys that in the first half of the season, if you were excited about him, dead wrong. Back half of the year, if you're excited about him, you look really smart. So I think he's going to be someone that is much better in the second half. St. Brown's usage is still the same. Not too concerned about the fact he had 2 catches on 12 targets last week. That is not going to happen. Jared Goff's not going to complete a career low 37% of his passes that he did in that game. I think St. Brown will be just fine. But JMO, big winner with Dan Campbell taking over the play calls. Let's stick in the NFC North for our next question here. Dr. Bearsec asks, Luther Burden outlook for the rest of the season. Again, someone I just looked at for the in-season rookie report on receptionperception.com. Check it out. Get yourself a subscription. You're going to love the stuff in this report here. Tons of words, tons of rookies covered from all ends of the draft. Top of the draft, all the way down to the bottom. We got Pat Bryant, we got Tedero McMillan, we've got them all. But Luther Burden, let's talk about him here real quick, because I think one thing that was really impressive to me that I saw working on Luther Burden is his success rate versus zone was so much better than it was as a prospect. Over 80% in his game sampled for reception perception in-season rookie report. That is encouraging to see for Luther Burden, because if you remember my prospect evaluation on him, I thought his work against zone was just kind of hit or miss, man. And for an interior player like him, who's going to be a slot flanker type, going to run those routes over the middle of the field, he needs to be better against zone, just period, point blank, end of story. But I thought his work there was, again, very hit or miss, and just wasn't enthusiastic with him working himself open, consistently running through the routes. He just would kind of run into coverage and get stuck. You can already see the impact of being coached by Antoine Randall and Ben Johnson on Luther Burden. He's running those routes at the right depth. They're crisp. They're clean. That's the most encouraging thing I think you saw. I think in one-on-one isolated routes, still some work needs to be done there. That's probably why he hasn't been a full-time player just yet, or a true target earner just yet. However, we did see him run more routes than Olamide Zaccheaus last week for the first time all season. I think we see more of that going forward. But long-term, I think Burden eventually takes over DJ Moore's spot in this offense. That's what I thought when he got drafted. It's still the take I maintain. So this season might be a little more hit or miss for Burden, but long-term, I'm excited about him being that running mate across from Rome Odunze, who's having a really nice second season. Okay, next one comes in from Berkey, but before we get to that, top 5 upcoming unrestricted free agents at wide receiver. Okay, so I'm actually going to give you 6, because one answer, the first 2 guys on the list, I don't think they're playing for other teams this year. Okay, so number 1 is George Pickens. Number 2 is Mike Evans. Number 3 is Alec Pierce. Number 4 is Rashid Shaheed. Number 5 is Jawan Jennings. And number 6 is Romeo Doubs. So the first 2, let's get this out of the way. George Pickens, balling right now, out of control. He's second in the NFL in receiving yards. He's winning against man coverage at an extremely high rate. Had that breakout season in his final year in Pittsburgh. He's only gotten better in Dallas. I love his role as the X receiver in this offense. He's getting franchise tag bare minimum. Here's the reality, guys. You can hope, you can dream all you want, but players at that level, they don't leave. They don't. NFL teams have all the power in the world to keep those guys there. I think Jerry and the boys are not letting George Pickens out of Dallas, so he's going to get franchise tag or they're going to get an extension. So he's technically a free agent. Don't expect him to go anywhere. Mike Evans, his contract runs out at the end of this year, but in the way you listen to Mike talk, he seems like a guy who may have already kind of known this might be his last NFL season. I think there's a chance he retires at the end of the year. He's dealt with another major injury now, a couple of injuries this year. I think we might have seen the last of Mike Evans this year, and unfortunately, great player, but he might be at a point where he's ready to retire, and I don't know if he wants to play elsewhere, but if he does, he could be a really interesting signing for a team that needs that kind of veteran mercenary X receiver. Alec Pierce, flat out one of the most improved players in the NFL this year, especially at the wide receiver position, bar none, probably the most improved wideout throughout football right now, winning in new ways while also still being that vertical threat as the X receiver for the Colts. He's going to get a bunch of money. I told James Coe like a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, he's going to get like $20 million a year. James was thinking it's like $10 million. I'm like, no, it's 15 to 20. So somewhere in there. Pierce is going to get a bag. He's playing extremely well this year. And I think the Colts just might re-sign him. Trading away A.D. Mitchell certainly seemed like it sent a signal that they're happy long-term with Alec Pierce as their X receiver. I really like Pierce as a prospect. Kind of sold my stock after his second season, but I'm ready and willing to buy all the way back in. I'm really excited about what Pierce is doing. Rashid Shaheed might re-sign with the Seahawks, but he's a free agent, certainly can bring a vertical element while also being a better separator than you think. Juwan Jennings, maybe not having the contract year that he wanted to really put San Francisco's feet to the fire, but he's a free agent, could get a decent deal as a starter somewhere else. And then Romeo Doubs, another player along with Pierce, who's really improved in his fourth NFL season. I think he could hit the market as Green Bay does have a lot of depth at that position. All right, next question, and we're definitely going to need a drink for this one because this is a long one. All right, Amish BR07 says, you're on an island in the Bahamas. You're wandering around with your bare feet in the sand, but a piece of metal catches your eyes as the sun glints off of it. You might want to walk past this, you say to yourself, but something compels you to bend down and pick this item up. You quickly discover a lamp that looks much like the genie lamp in the Aladdin movies you watched growing up. Hey, hun, watch this, you say to your wife. Okay, first of all, I would never say, hey, hun, to my wife. What am I, 70 years old? Please. Anyways, you say this to your wife as you rub the lamp only for a genie to magically appear. Hi, Matthew. So formal. This genie's very formal. Hi, Matthew. I shall grant you 3 wishes, but there's a catch. You can only use these wishes on 3 wide receivers on 3 different teams whose offensive deployment and route participation you can change. No coach or offensive coordinator will question you, and they will obey your every command. Which 3 wide receiver usages would you change and how? All right, great question. Great question here. My number one answer easily is Jaden Reed, Packers wide receiver, okay? Whether it's LaFleur, whether it's someone else, me and this coach are looking each other in the eye, and I'm saying, this genie over here, want to call me Matthew, they say you can't disobey me. You got to play Jaden Reed every single snap. And let me tell you what, I watch this Packers offense right now, and I sure as hell think they could use a guy like Jaden Reed on every single snap. Jaden Reed beats man coverage. I've seen it with my eyeballs. My eyeballs have seen Jaden Reed beat man coverage. Wins on those in-breaking routes. Wins down the field. He should be on the field all the time. I think he can be a flanker. He's not some design touches guy. The genie and I are no longer pigeonholing Jaden Reed. He's on the field for all the snaps. You love to see it. Okay, the next guy, and I want to bring up his rookie report charting for this one, and he's kind of similar vein, honestly, Jalen Knoll. Nick Caley. Figure it out, dog. Like, Jalen Knoll is your most explosive player besides Nico Collins. He's your best separator besides Nico Collins. He should be on the field way more than he is, okay? Again, is he a slot-based player? Yes. But he can't be running fewer routes than Christian Kirk. All respect in the world of Christian Kirk, whose game I really like. It's time to see more of Jalen Knoll. Maybe he's not in 2 receiver sets, whatever. You got some guys you want to block on the edge, totally fine. But Jalen Knoll needs to be on the field way more, okay? And last one, and this is mostly a sick fascination for me, I just want to see Jack Besh play for the Raiders. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I overrated Besh as a prospect. Totally possible. Both things. I am stupid, and maybe I did overrate Jack Besh as a prospect. But also, by the way, he was one of these guys that only line up on one side of the field. Typically, those players do take a year, maybe, if they ever do develop in the NFL. Totally fine. But I honestly just want him to change teams. To put Jack Besh on a team like the Rams that uses a big slot receiver, you know, being on the Raiders with Brock Bowers, who's basically a slot receiver, that's like not computing. Chip Kelly certainly can't handle it. Pete Carroll and the boys, they're all leaking, you know, come on, enough. I'd like to see Jack Besh on another team. So those are 3. I could go on and on. I got a lot more. Like, can we get Rashad Bateman some targets? They're a lot. I don't want to do the Bateman thing, but it's you got to kind of mention it here. It's the layup on this one. Okay, next one comes in from Nutting in Paris. What a username. How much do you take into account size and blocking ability for potential fantasy stars? I know Josh Downs and Jalen Knoll are favorites of yours, but this archetype of receiver seems to struggle seeing the field enough to be a reliable fantasy asset each week. Great question. Really good question. And taking blocking ability is something that I always want to take into account. It's a big deal. I bring it up a lot with wide receivers, especially when guys stand out as blockers. You can really earn playing time and keep yourself in the good graces of teams. Remember Brandon Ayuk, right? He started to earn his way out of the doghouse because he was blocking his ass off. That was big. Think about a guy like Roma Dunze is blocking really well this year. He's getting a lot of opportunities because of that. It keeps you on the field and it earns you a lot of opportunities. I think the question about size is definitely interesting. Ultimately, I think if the right coaching staff can get a smaller player on the field in 12 personnel, the question is just the other guys in the room. I think for Downs, the problem with him is that Pierce and Pittman are also really good. And, I definitely maybe have overrated Downs at time in Dynasty, but I did not have him as a top 40 fantasy receiver, partly because of these concerns. Obviously, I didn't see Daniel Jones doing what he did, but still wanted to take some of those risks into account because it was a really crowded room. That was part of the calculus too. Pittman's a good player, and Pierce I liked, but he's way exceeded my expectations this year. So ultimately looked like a big miss on Downs this year for me. And a part of it is because he has not been on the field for those 2 tight end sets, the 12 personnel, the 2 receiver sets. And that's definitely something to take into account more and more going forward, especially as the league is turning to these more heavier personnel sets to get some matchup advantages. I mean, shoot, even Puka Nakua's route percentage has gone down the last few weeks because the Rams have leaned into 13 personnel with 1 receiver on the field, 1 running back, and 3 tight ends. Now, nobody should be panicking about Puka. Nobody should be docking him in your rest of season rankings, any of that stuff. But it changes the outlook when you're on the field in the first 5 weeks as an 85% route participation player. In the last few weeks, he's been sub 75%. That stuff does matter on the margins, and it certainly matters for these role players like Jalen Noel, Josh Downs. So definitely it's an archetype of receiver I've tried to get less and less enthusiastic about. I certainly thought Josh Downs would be more involved than he was this year, so that has been a bummer. But it is absolutely a good question and something to take into account going forward and should always be. Okay, next question here comes from Vader FC. What have you seen from Mike McDaniel in terms of his usage of Jalen Waddle since Tyreek Hill's injury? Is Waddle filling the Tyreek position, or has there been any innovation? The point of the question, I love that. Tell me what the point is. The point of the question is determining the future viability of Waddle remaining the number 1. Should McDaniel stay? Does he seem like he's being used as the coach views him as a long-term number 1? I think yes. I think Mike McDaniel has always used Jalen Waddle the right way. He's been more of the true outside receiver in this offense as the vertical option. The only difference between Waddle now and Waddle last year when his efficiency metrics went down, and we have a whole video about this on the channel that you guys can check out. The only difference is that last year he was lower in the progression because Tyreek Hill was the number 1 read, and he is the move around guy, the created touches player in the offense. So that's tough. And then Waddle is also at times behind Devon Achane, the screens, the swings, the dump offs that Tua takes, and the Jonnu Smith kind of creative touch stuff underneath. So Waddle was almost never going to be the first read in these progressions. And Tua's a quarterback who gets the ball out faster than almost anybody else, especially last year. So Waddle just didn't get those opportunities. So it looks like he's playing bad in the per route metrics, but he's not. He was still really good last year in isolation, and he's been awesome in isolation this year. I think it looks like he can function as the true number 1 in this offense. I think Miami goes in the offseason, certainly needs to redo its wide receiver room. Maybe they'll look at Tua as the starting quarterback, but I think they're secure in the number 1 option being Jalen Waddle for this team. I like that in terms of his long-term viability as the number 1 if Mike McDaniel stays. And right now, I would guess the odds would favor Mike McDaniel staying. All right, quick break here to tell you about our sponsor, ZBiotics. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. You think you have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's finest genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration. It's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. A little personal story here from me. Look, holiday seasons are coming up, right? Thanksgiving's around the corner. Christmas after that. It's a lot of gatherings. It's a lot of get-togethers. You're having a few drinks. But listen, It's also still grind season for your boy. It's football season, okay? I got to be locked in. I can't be, having a not great day the next day. You need to be completely locked in. Okay, yeah, you get to the holiday gathering, that's fine. Have a good time. You don't want to have to sacrifice that, but you also don't want to have to sacrifice the next day when it's time to do another show, when it's time to chart another wide receiver, when it's time to get your butt up out of bed and get those steps in, get the workout in, get the sweat in the morning. You don't want to sacrifice that. You simply cannot sacrifice that, especially during the NFL season. So I have made pre-alcohol and Z-Biotics a huge part of my routine this time of the year, especially. So make the most of every toast, tailgate, and touchdown this holiday season. Don't forget to bring pre-alcohol along for the ride. Go to zbiotics.com/RP to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use RP at checkout. So that's Z-Biotics. It's backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, check it out right here on the screen. Head to zbiotics.com/RP. Use the code RP at checkout, 15% off. Boom. You are going to enjoy your holiday season so much more with Z-Biotics along for the ride. All right, let's get back to the questions here. Well, first, we got the Z-Biotics. Let's make use of it here. Next question comes in from JDM2. Is Justin Jefferson's time as a top 5 Dynasty wide receiver over? Whew. That question almost makes you emotional. Thinking about it. No, I think the quick answer is no. I'm looking at my Dynasty rankings right now. I still have Justin Jefferson 3, although I am strongly considering in the next update, which will be in the next few days, actually, and receptionperception.com is where you'll be able to find those updated rankings. I think it might be time to put Jackson Smith and Jigba ahead of Justin Jefferson. JSN's playing great ball. He's been the best wide receiver in the NFL this year. It's only his 3rd season. It's getting better and better. Elite route running tape from JSN this year. The tape matches the production. The RP charting has been great ever since he's been in the NFL. I think it might be time. Puka's a guy I think you should certainly say is ahead of him. Jamar Chase as well. So that might leave him, 4? You're kind of competing CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, Malik Neighbors. I don't know. Do you guys really feel good about where those guys are in terms of upside over Jefferson? I think potentially. The McCarthy stuff is tough, but here's the deal. If McCarthy is going to be as bad as he's been to start his NFL career, and look, it's only 5 starts, but it's been that bad. You can argue in the comments all you want, but it's been that bad. It's going to be that bad. He's not going to be the quarterback of the Vikings. They're going to figure something else out. And Kevin O'Connell, I trust in the long term to find the answer. So top 5 Dynasty receiver, I still think yes, but I think it's getting a little bit more crowded in terms of the field there with all these great wide receivers in the NFL. All right, next question. Fantasy Digest asks, is there any precedent for Devontae Smith's situation? That is a player that seemed to have fully plateaued as the firm number 2 behind an all-time great player for multiple years, only to see himself eclipse the veteran, seeming all phases of the receiving game. Good question here. Precedent is tough. I will say, obviously, yes, I have been the one beating the drum for a long time this year that A.J. Brown has not looked right on film to me. That is, I said it on the site all year, said it on this channel, have said it on the podcast. I think a lot of the Eagles passing game worries is part because A.J. Brown just doesn't look like the same player. And that could be for multiple factors. The biggest one to me is just he had a lot of lower body injuries, and that's something that's just on my radar. I'm hoping that he bounces back. I really am, because I love A.J. Brown. I love him as a player. He's long time been one of my guys. So I'm hoping we see a bounce back here. But to this point, he's just not been the same A.J. Brown that he has been in previous years. Meanwhile, Devontae Smith is on that upper trajectory, baby. Number 2 in success rate versus man coverage in 2024 behind only his teammate A.J. Brown. But he had that true breakthrough year to say, hey, I'm knocking on the door. I'm ready to be a number 1 receiver. That was the type of year he had last year. And this year, it's not even been close in terms of who's the more productive and who's the better wide receiver on film. It's been Devontae Smith. He's been the best Eagles skill position player without question to me this year. That's the level. He's playing like top 10 NFL receiver, period, end of story. So I agree, Fantasy Digest, this is the situation that's happening. In terms of, precedent, I think we're seeing it maybe in a handful of spots this year, right? Like Waddle and Tyreek. Obviously, Tyreek got hurt, but I think there was a chance that could have happened anyways. I don't really know if I remember any other examples. One I would maybe suggest is Brandon Ayuk overtaking Deebo Samuel. I think in 2023, Ayuk leapt ahead of Samuel as that true elite level player. Unfortunately, that contract mishap, the 49ers messed that one up. It was a mess, and Ayuk ended up not participating all offseason, started the year slow, and then got hurt. What are you going to do? But yeah, I think Ayuk, I don't know if he's going to play this year. I was never really counting on him this year, so we'll see what happens. But that's maybe the situation I could kind of compare this to. But I think AJ is better than Deebo in his prime, and yeah, so it's not exactly a perfect one, but that was one maybe I could sort of suggest here. Okay, next one comes in from McG. With Keon Coleman appearing to be on his way out in Buffalo, what offensive coordinators would you like to see him with? / what teams are in need of a power slot and would know how to use him? Okay. I think I just want to get this on the record now because I'm still getting these questions a lot with Keon Coleman. And look, if you guys haven't watched, for whatever reason at this point, if you haven't watched the Keon Coleman video I did prior to the NFL draft about, what does it mean if your favorite prospect struggles to separate, which Keon Coleman did as a prospect that was shown in his reception perception profile. We did a whole list on sub 35th percentile success rate versus man and press players and which guys went on to succeed. Okay, there was a whole bunch of them, and they all were big slots for the most part. So that was the hope as a prospect for Keon Coleman, that he would get that big slot usage. I think I'm kind of done with that dream now at this point. I'm kind of done with that fan fiction at this stage with Keon Coleman because, number one, he's like not showing up to meetings. Like we need him to lock in. He's not moving positions if he's not locked in. Let's just get that on the record right now. So I think in terms of where I'd like to see him go, I'd like to see him lock in first. I'd like to see him take this stuff seriously and not miss meetings, because at this point, like, that's up to him. That's the biggest thing. And until we see that, I'm kind of done with the big slot fan fiction for Keon Coleman. There are definitely some teams that need big slots. I think same division, but the Jets obviously could use somebody like that. Tanner Engstrand off that Lions tree. They've been using Garrett Wilson, though, in a lot of ways that they would weaponize Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I don't know if I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I definitely think there's a chance that there's a team out there that could use his skill set, the big slot type. Could he go to one of these Sean McVay acolyte teams that need someone of that regard? I think potentially, Jacksonville. Obviously, the Rams themselves could always use some receiver depth, but the problem is I think a lot of these teams that need a big slot already kind of have that guy. And I don't know that Coleman going elsewhere would really move the needle all that much at this point. So yeah, I'm kind of done with the fanfic of Keon Coleman, big slot receiver, until he can really show a little more in his career at this point. So I think there's a chance, but I'm not really banking on it at this stage anymore. I think he's just not a good X receiver in the NFL, and I'm worried that he might wash out at that position, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. Okay, next one comes in from Skleebs. How legit is Alec Pierce's development and potential when considering him as a dynasty asset? Any plans to move him up from a green / tier 6 guy? Feels like he's more in Pittman's range now, or am I in Jim Irsay Vision Quest mode? Yeah, I think that there's a good thing to break down here in terms of Pierce. I do want to see where he lands next. If he resigns with Indianapolis, I actually definitely think there's a chance that I could move him up the dynasty rankings. Very least, he probably deserves to be a tier up. I am overdue to update him in that way because I was really concerned about him as a fantasy asset a couple of years ago because I thought A.D. Mitchell might push him for his job, but he's just been so awesome ever since then. And dude, I mean, just incredible. So I think that Pierce, there's definitely some potential staying power. The development is real. I definitely plan to move him up here pretty soon. It's just a question of how much. But let me just say for sure, the development is real. The breakout is real for Pierce. He's been awesome this year, and I expect that to continue. Speaking of continuing, next one comes in from WMM6068. Instead of playing the blame game, what about the praise game? And who deserves praise in order for the Panthers' random explosion? Did one or more wide receivers make life a leisurely stroll for Bryce Young? Did Bryce elevate Coker and or Leggett? That type of thing. All right. The first guy that I think we need to credit is, without a doubt, their number one receiver, Teteroa McMillan, who we just put up for the rookie report receptionperception.com. A lot of interesting takeaways from McMillan, but this route chart that you're seeing from him, the comebacks, the big in breakers, that was a lot of what he was doing against that Falcons team, wasn't it? Love to see that from McMillan. Love to see the usage and deployment from him. So that was the number one thing. He just balled the hell out in that game. He looks awesome. He looks like the first round wideout that he was drafted to be. Looks like he could be even maybe better than I expected him as a prospect, but just he's kind of that cross between Cortland Sutton and Michael Pittman to me, which is what I compared him as a prospect. And sounds like a pretty damn good player to me. And this is somebody who loves Michael Pittman's game. So don't take that as a diss. Take that as a huge compliment from your boy. I love Michael Pittman. I love what I'm seeing from Tedero McMillan. And I love what I saw the usage for McMillan this past week, which brings me to the second person I think we got to credit here, which is Dave Canales. I think really highly of Dave Canales as a head coach and as a play caller and a play designer. And he moved McMillan around a lot more. And I know the first question is, well, why didn't he do it sooner? Well, number one, this receiver course has been a mess all year. He's so banged up. Coker's been hurt. They were playing Hunter Renfrow at one point, who's a slot-only guy. You couldn't really move McMillan around because he was just the best X-receiver candidate, and they had to play other guys in these other roles. Now that Coker's back, now that Leggett maybe showing a little bit more, you can start to move McMillan into the slot. You can move him into those condensed splits, the 2 receiver, the 3 receiver, a lot of stuff you can do with McMillan. I love the way Dave Canales did that. I expect to see way more of it in the back half, which is only going to make his success rates better, his production better, and his relationship with Bryce Young better. And I think Bryce Young obviously deserves a huge amount of credit here for what happened. He was so good in this game, so accurate on time. He was tough as shit too. He took a bunch of hits, just got up and kept firing. I loved that game from Bryce. I hope we only continue to see more of it. And then those depth receivers, I think, deserve a lot of credit to Jalen Coker hauling in the downfield catch from the slot, several other big boy catches, the 2-point conversion. Xavier Leggett, great route on the go, bad coverage, but good route on the go. Played really well in this game. I'd love to see those guys all work together. I think they're a really cool young trio, McMillan, Leggett, Coker, and they can kind of be interchangeable. Coker can play more on ball than the other receivers that they had previously, which allows you to move McMillan around. So everybody deserves a lot of credit for that big explosion. I'm hoping it's not random. I'm hoping we see more of it going forward. All right, last 2 questions here. Chipolo Polo says, is Michael Wilson trustable when Marv is healthy / active? From a fantasy standpoint, probably not trustworthy. That being said, Jacoby Brissett, when he's been under center, the Arizona Cardinals lead the NFL in yards per game, which is a crazy thing to say, passing yards per game. Crazy thing to say, but it is true. It is a fact. Can't take it away from us. I think Michael Wilson is really underrated. I just put something up from the Week 11 charting notebook on the site for him. Good on the crossers, good on stop routes, pretty good on comebacks as well. Not a ton of speed to him, not a ton of quick twitch ability, but good, rugged, reliable starting receiver play. Very underrated. Good technical route runner, like what I saw to Michael Wilson. So I don't know if he's trustable when Marv is back, but from a dynasty standpoint, I think what we saw this past week was obviously an outlier, but it's an indication that there's more talent and ability with Michael Wilson than we probably think. So yeah, he's a prospect I kind of liked a little bit. His rookie year profile, which you can check out on the site, I just actually tweeted about it as well, was kind of better than we think. He was over 70% success rate versus man and press. And look, if you're an outside receiver, you beat man and press at over 70%, we're interested in you flat out. And that was a good thing to see from him. So I'm like, from a dynasty perspective, I'm interested to see what that situation looks like next year. A little bit of a forgotten player in the NFL is Michael Wilson. He made people remember who he is this past week. All right, final question comes from David J. Guattieri. Who is the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville next year, Hunter or BTJ? Who scores more fantasy points in 2026? Glad we get to bring it all the way around. We started with the Travis Hunter question. We're going to end with the Travis Hunter question. And I think this one is still really, really close to me, but I think if you really forced me, if you got me, a few drinks in, let's do that. I think I'd probably say, Z-Biotics, shout out. I think I'd probably say Travis Hunter. I think I would. I know Brian Thomas Jr. is awesome, and I'm really hoping he crushes it down the stretch, and I think he can bounce back from what we've seen. But I just wonder if the fit in the offense is a little bit more towards Travis Hunter. It's a little bit more towards these Jacoby Myers types that they've acquired, those in-breakers. And as we showed at the top, Hunter's really good on those routes. Brian Thomas has struggled a little bit on those routes this year. He's better pure perimeter stuff, stops, goes, the posts and corner routes. That's really where BTJ is awesome. Deep outs, electric on those routes. Can be a really excellent starting X receiver. He's just struggled to adapt to the offense a little more, and I think it's again, BTJ had a way better season as a rookie than Travis Hunter did. Totally acknowledge that. But I still think the talent level on these guys is pretty close, and I just wonder if the fit in the offense is a little bit more towards Travis Hunter. So again, my heart says Travis Hunter. My head, by the end of the year, I might end up saying Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm open to changing it, but I just wonder right now as we sit here today that the actual trend of the offense might be more towards Travis Hunter. Very much hoping that happens because I love Hunter's game. I want to see the best for him. Unfortunately, coming off that injury just really sucks. But I'm hoping BTJ can bounce back because I think there's more talent than what he's shown this year. All right, with that, it does it for another edition of Reception Perception, the Mailbag. Please check out our sponsor, ZBiotics. You can find all of the info in the description below. Also, plenty of other places you can check out Reception Perception content. Reception Perception, the show. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel. Would love it if you did that. We're getting really close to 20,000 subscribers, so would love your help and support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we do original videos like this, shows from the pod, plenty of stuff coming in the off season as well. And of course, receptionperception.com. Weekly notebooks, the in-season rookie reports, so much goodness going up on the site where I'm pumping out a ton of charting stuff for you guys this year. So you can check it on the site. Hope you love it. For now, we will see you in the next video.